it's funny, like there's a big argument for, alcohol running in the family and the addictive personality and all that, but it's it's down to your discipline as well a bit. And I mightn't have had the best self-discipline, and I also I feel like I let things develop as well. It will, the longer you leave it, the more you continue it, the more it's going to get hold of you.
Yeah.
This podcast is part of the GK Media Studios Creators Network, helping people tell their stories. Become a storyteller today and learn about our podcaster network at gkmediastudios.com.
Welcome to Psychology with a Sparkle, episode 2. I'm delighted to be joined today by videographer, photographer, content creator, and a good pal of mine for many years, Hugh Sweeney. Welcome to the podcast, Hugh.
Dauncey, or Denise. Dauncey is my name for you. We go back a while, and it's a pleasure to be here. Am I only episode 2?
Only, yeah, you're my first guest. Do you feel privileged?
Oh, I absolutely honoured. Yeah. Privileged, honoured, and it's a pleasure. I'll look into the cameras,
Good stuff.
To say thank you for
stuff.
This. This is lovely. Cup of tea, got my water
Isn't
down
great?
here.
In our GK Media.
Exactly, yeah, lovely studio.
Oh,
yeah.
Really
Gary's
nice.
doing a great job. Fantastic. Yeah. Acoustic paneling, purple lights. Boom.
I thought we might start. Obviously, this episode is going to be kind of mostly on addiction, and I suppose your kind of journey with drink specifically.
The drink.
Yeah. And but I thought we might start just a little bit, just for the people who don't know you, on your own background and kind of, in terms of what led you into your professional work, maybe a little bit on your family.
Yeah. Okay. Born and raised in Renmore, Galway.
Yeah.
The famous Renmore, and normal childhood, great family. Was the youngest of a large enough group of siblings. There was 4 others, and then me, and there was a good gap between me and the rest. Dad was a guard. Mum, God rest her, both my parents passed away, but Mum was, she was a great housewife.
And very creative lady, wasn't she?
Very creative, dressmaker, brilliant gardener. My 2 parents were pillars of society. Yeah. Don't know what went wrong with the rest of us, but it was a lovely family times. Having like much older siblings, like my sister Marion, she lives in Italy now. Like she is 16 years older than me. So being like, when I was 5, she was 21.
Sure.
So she was kind of like bringing me around and all that. So I had a kind of, it sounds weird, but like I great family life, very experienced siblings to show me stuff. But in a way, I was kind of like an only child too, because they were so much older than me, that I was left to my own devices a lot as well. And, they'd be gone and stuff. So I was, So that was my early life. Went to school, Renmore, then St. Mary's. I was never very sporty in school, but I loved golf. And I was kind of active. I was kind of athletic, even though I wasn't sporty. I had no interest in the GAA.
Yeah.
Which in Galway, going back, young lad, when you're not into team sports like that, forget about you. And I remember being in Mary's kind of like, this guy has a great pair of shoulders on him, but he doesn't play, so no interest there, forget about him. Yeah. So but I was always kind of tall, physical, and, I got into a bit of, that's where I met you in the gym, wasn't it? Galway City Gym. So into a bit of training, trying to keep active, and creativity was my thing. I knew when I was in school, I knew ultimately I'd be doing something creative.
Yeah.
I was actually good at certain subjects. Like I wasn't bad at geography, and but there just wasn't enough technical stuff.
Sure.
I needed technical stuff. And learning French and Irish, desperate. I was terrible.
Okay.
So like my average enough, probably maybe even a bit below average leaving cert, but it was out of lack of interest really.
Sure. Yeah. So that led you then to GMIT to study art design?
Art and design, yeah. I mean, we weren't blessed with options. I knew that it was kind of the closest thing. I wanted to do like design and product design and kind of cool stuff, drawing parts and stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember applying for a course down some other college, but they stopped doing the course or something. But I probably wouldn't have lasted at it anyway. I just when I was that age, I don't know what, I just a terrible time in my life around the late teens. If I'm being honest, just no productivity at all.
You'll have to remind me of when your dad passed. Was that around that time?
No, Dad passed when I was 26.
Okay.
Yeah, he died when I was 26. Yeah, Dad was a brilliant sportsman. In his day, played fantastic football for, up when he was in Donegal, played down here. He took up golf in his mid-30s, and he was such a determined character, my father, that I remember him when I was very young. When you play golf, you need to, and golfers will know this, you don't really learn golf on the golf course. And this is where people make a huge mistake, but you learn golf through the repetition, the muscle memory of practice, hitting ball after ball. And Dad used to bring me out, and he'd hit ball after ball, only the shorter irons. He wouldn't even be hitting it that far, but he was like a machine. And he'd go out on the golf course then, and he'd be just sticking stuff to the flag. And I used to collect the golf balls. I'd have the bucket, and instead of going around on the ground to pick them up, I used to just catch them because he was so accurate. But Dad used to play off too.
Wow.
He was a really, so I remember learning that from him. So I kind of got into a little bit of golf, but I never stuck with it. I was terrible. I didn't apply myself to it.
So you were saying he passed in your late 20s,
mid-20s, 26, yeah.
And I know that had a big effect on you at the time.
Oh yeah, I mean, I remember around that time, like when Dad passed away, I was kind of, I started working for myself around that time. So I left the job, and I remember just the sadness of it, of Dad dying. And then the fact that as well, I was about to leave the job I was in. I knew I was going to go working for myself. So I just didn't care about the job. And I just didn't tell the guy I was working for when I'd be back.
Okay.
And I remember just drinking 7 nights on the trot. And I was down the Huntsman. The Huntsman used to be my local pub, being from Renmore there. But I just remember just drinking like myself, like pints mostly.
Into oblivion.
Yeah, just getting, well, I was never, and I won't go too deep too soon, but it wasn't a blackout thing. Just getting a drink buzz every day, pint after pint. And I used to put them away. So that was kind of how I dealt with Dad. Yeah. Mum was a different story 5 years ago. But yeah, that was back then. And I always remember when he died, like it was like as if it didn't sink in, at the start. And I remember then, like, because he was a very popular man, he had a huge funeral. He was a guard, very, very well-known golfer and guard, and he had all sorts at the funeral. It was very big. They blocked up the whole Dublin Road, bringing him down to Cemetery Cross. I was mortified, actually. It's amazing. Yeah. It was just a fantastic day. But I remember then the following day, then just the quietness and going out to his car, and I had the keys of his car. I just sat in. And the smell of Dad. And then I opened the boot. I saw the golf clubs, the smell of the golf clubs, the smell of the golf shoes, that sort of mixture of clay, muck from the ground and and his smell. And I just drove his car around Renmore, and that was it. It just hit me, but so you deal the drink was a great way of dealing with stuff.
So that was kind of like your crutch at the time.
I don't think there's anything extraordinary for anyone to go on the piss after someone dies. I don't think
absolutely.
But maybe I probably, it was, I just remember at the time, that was the 26, 27. I remember just taking things to a new level. Yeah. This is going to sound mad, but I used to smoke cigarettes in and out. I used to, I'd smoke a bit and then I'd go off them. I never really wanted to, I was never happy, but I used to get caught on them. I'd say, oh, geez, I'm caught smoking again now. And I'd be buying fags, and I'd take out 5 and I'd give the pack to my sister or whatever, smoke them. Yeah. And then I'd be back later to her, give us another one of them. Yeah. But I remember at the time saying, that's it, I quit fags. And then I remember around that time as well, just when you quit cigarettes, then you're kind of looking for something to do. And I just remembered, I can remember just drinking more and drinking faster at that time.
So do you feel like you always kind of had an addictive personality, or was it specifically kind of around that time that you noticed?
It's kind of now, it's now that I'm kind of thinking of that. It's I understand how the brain works more and how the dopamine chemical in the body works. I've become very wide to it. Mm-hmm. And I know that if I, wake up in the morning and I pick up my phone and start scrolling, and if I know I'll feel a certain way. If I know if I get out of bed, make the bed, go in, clean up around, get ready, have a coffee, sit down, then maybe check social media, I know I'll feel much better. I know it makes me feel bad. Yeah. So the dopamine is a big thing with the addiction. I know how it works. And the stuff that makes you feel good at the time, it makes you feel awful afterwards. Yeah, so that's common knowledge, I guess. But yeah, I kind of do have a bit of, you know, it's funny, like there's a big argument for, you know, alcohol running in the family and the addictive personality and all that. But it's kind of, it's down to your discipline as well a bit. And I mightn't have had the best self-discipline. And I also kind of, I feel like I let things develop as well. It will, you know, the longer you leave it, the more you continue it, the more it's going to get hold of you.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about that then. When did you kind of notice that it was starting to get worse? Or was there kind of a progression from that point, from, we'd say, your mid-20s?
I remember sort of, you'd know this guy, but I remember a fella, and he's a well-known businessman, a fella, I'll just call him Paul, right? But he was well known around Galway and stuff. And I had set up shop myself, working for myself in the signage business, and I was doing not great, but I was on my own, and I used to just tick over, you know. But Paul was, after leaving his vocation, he was fairly well known where he was working at the time. He was in the bar management side of things. And I remember he had known me for years, and he visited me, and and I was about 27 at the time, 20, maybe just turning 28. And he wanted to buy into my company, and I ended up getting him involved, and the two of us kind of built the business up together. But that was when I remember just really, like the work he made me do. Like this guy, he was just a grafter, and Paul has got quite far in life because of his grafting, and I learned so much from that guy.
Yeah.
But I remember, because I wasn't on my own, because I didn't have the option just to sleep in if I was a bit wrecked from drinking or whatever, I had to show up to Paul. And then we hired two guys, and I had to show up to them. So all of a sudden then, this sort of, I won't say lazy, I hate calling myself lazy. I was lazy at times, but this sort of, I don't know, how do I describe it? Just being soft on yourself attitude that I had all along. It kind of, all of a sudden then I had to show up, show face.
Yeah.
Do you get me? And then I was going, Jesus, I'm pretty bad here. And then I remember him saying, geez, were you in the Huntsman last night? I says, I was. On a Monday night. And weren't you there at the weekend? I said, I was. When you went drinking again last night? I says, yeah. How many pints do you have? I said, I probably had 10. And I might have had 10. I might have had 2 cans at home then. And he said, you're not sick today? I says, I'm a bit off. And he was like this, going, Jesus, how do you manage? So then all of a sudden, then this conversation was happening, you know, but I was still getting the day's work done.
So you're kind of still very much functioning, and probably functioning very well, even though you were like, would you have been a bit groggy? Would you have managed to make it in for 9 a.m, or were you kind of straggling in with
what was happening was
clothes from yesterday and unkempt?
Yeah, what was happening was, well, that was nothing new with me. I was happy. Yeah, I'd be showing up with my North Face puffy jacket, and Paul had got uniforms for us to wear, and I'd be in with my North Face and my tracksuit bottoms and my baseball hat. It used to drive me crazy.
Yeah.
But I remember, like, back then, I'm just trying to think now. You asked me there about the grogginess, and I remember just coming into work with Paul and just finding it very sort of like, how am I going to get through today? You know, I was wrecked. I was tired. I might know I was been sick, like vomiting level, like, you know, I wouldn't have been that level, but just feeling like, oh, geez, please roll on today. I'd be wishing for the day to go.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Would that progress then? And like, would you go drinking again then?
And then what would happen is, and that wasn't even just a thing in that era. That became a big thing for me. But you'd be just, and I see that with people now. You can just tell when people just aren't present, that the drink is just, they were drinking the day before and they've been affected by it. And you're now, and that's the way I was. You're no longer thinking of performing and doing your best at you're just getting through your vocation. You're just thinking of getting to the evening. And then what happens is you're so relieved then when you're getting to the evening. The day is gone. You've got through it, and you get this little spike in dopamine. Little feel good thing happens. You got through it. She's, I might go for a drink.
Go for a pint again.
Yeah, and I remember then around that era, a new bar opened called Bodkin's Bar beside where I lived. I was living in Merlin Park, and I remember just pulling up the car like outside the pub and just going in for a pint. And on my own, pints of Guinness was always my thing. Pint after, and I just could not leave that bar. I'd leave the car there because I was literally 50 yards away.
Okay.
And I'd walk into my apartment then. But I remember at that age, around the 28, I was going, right, this is pretty bad. This is pretty bad drinking.
So you had a sense that I'm not headed in a good direction here.
I'm pretty screwed here. And it was like Groundhog Day. I was I'd get the day's work done, just get through today, and then I'd go in for pints again in the evening, and I'd have a skip full of pints, and I'd go down to Supermax. An awful existence. I'd go into Supermax and I'd get like a snack box, whatever. This is about 9:30 because I'd be there from 6, we'll say, when we'd finish work, maybe 7.
Yeah.
Now, it wasn't always like that because Paul used to love a drink as well. Now, Paul probably doesn't drink as much, but I remember we used to go drink. We often, a few of us would go in
for a few drinks after work.
But I'd stay going.
Okay.
They'd all go home at 9. I'd stay going. But so when I was on my own, but I remember going in, getting a Supermax then and going into the off license before it closed at 10.
Okay.
And getting, plenty of cans and going watching movies then for the evening. And that could be like a Tuesday or Wednesday night, even a Monday night, Sunday night, whatever. Well, not Sunday. I'm on about after work or whatever.
Yeah.
So I was just doing an awful lot of solitary drinking on my own.
Okay.
An awful lot. And I remember feeling really bad over it, like really guilty, like showing up to work in front of the lads again, feeling wrecked, talking to clients. I don't know how I did it. Talking to clients, the guilty conscience. Oh, we're thinking of using you. And I was in the signage business. We heard you do nice stuff. And I'm looking at them going, if they only fucking knew. Do you know what I mean?
I know.
If they only knew that I didn't. And I wouldn't, I remember like when you'd be boozing and stuff, you'd be watching a movie and everything is better when you're boozing. You're getting this fake high, this dopamine thing, spike. So a movie that you normally mightn't be that gone at, you'd be, oh, this is class.
Be really into it.
Yeah. And you just stay going that you just wouldn't want to go to bed. Oh, I'll have another can.
Yeah.
And I remember then that type of drinking. And there was other times then like maybe a Sunday and I try not, I say I won't drink today, but and I go to Dunn's then. I'd go to Dunn's and I'd buy a lovely steak and a lovely food and all that. I said, I'll cook a lovely feed now today for the afternoon. And then I'd be looking at the bottle of wine. And then I'd be checking the percentage, make sure we get something with a good kick to it.
Right.
And I'd buy a drink then and I'd go drinking and cook a lovely feed up Sunday afternoon, watch a movie. Then it'd be 8 o'clock. Oh, fuck, I wonder if the lads down the Huntsman. Go down the Huntsman then, drinking 10 pints.
Okay.
Back home, then sick as a dog in the morning.
And how long did that go on for you?
Oh, Jesus, I did that for years. Years.
Yeah.
In and out. There was periods, and I love talking about this, but there was islands of hope.
Talk to me about the islands of hope.
So I went in 2006. I went to a psychologist over near the hospital. He was lovely, and he just said, "Look, can you do this?" And he was a lot of the stuff he said at the time when I think back, and I don't want to disrespect him, but he was saying like okay, instead of having a pint, have a my waddy. And then have a pint, and then instead of the next pint, have another. That doesn't work. Okay. An alcoholic will tell you that kind of just doesn't work. Some people can thin out, drink a bit of water.
Moderate their drinking.
But he was very good. He says, well, I want you to join the gym, he said. Again, can you join the gym for me? And you had known me. I had kind of scratched the surface with weights.
That's what I was going to say. So how long? So had you just not been going to the gym? Because you were kind of in and out of the gym. Like
I was always kind of in and out of the gym. Yeah. But around that era, when I started the business with Paul, because I was so working, so around the 2003, 2004, 2005, no gym. And that was the start of the kind of darker drinking. Yeah. In a way, actually, I was frustrated because. And I think this contributed to the drinking because I was putting in so many hours into the business and I wasn't, like the signage business was fine, but I wasn't that gone in it either. And I wanted to be like a famous DJ or something. I had great aspirations, dreams. Yeah. So I think that caused me to drink a lot as well. I was a dreamer and I wasn't happy with what I was doing in life. Even though a lot of people were kind of saying, Jesus, Huey has two vans in the road and 3 lads work. I thought I was doing great. And I was doing good, but I wasn't happy. Yeah. Because I wanted to be DJing. I wanted to be making an electronic music producer and stuff. Sure. That was a big hobby of mine.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So,
but I think that's a really important point actually around because you weren't happy.
Yeah.
And you weren't kind of fulfilling your true purpose, what kind of set you alight.
Yeah, I wasn't happy.
Yeah.
And I knew that the business, I knew what I was doing was good for me though, as in the work ethic that Paul was introduced, but I wasn't happy.
You had to show up for work.
I had to show up and I was going, geez, do you know what I was saying? I was saying to myself, I'm working so hard with, why didn't I do this all along on my own? Or why didn't I just do 40 hours? Because I wasn't doing that. I wasn't showing up for myself.
Yeah.
I was showing up for him. I wasn't showing up for myself.
Yourself.
And I was saying to myself, geez, imagine if you put this amount of time into something you were really into.
Passionate about, yeah.
That's what I was thinking. So what I often did was I used to drink to kind of escape and dream where I was going to be. See where the drink would take me and dream.
Yeah.
And I'd go on the internet. I got the internet connected, and to the apartment I was renting and just go look at places or just where am I going to be? And in 3 years' time, I'm going to be living in New York or something. This kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was a dreamer and I used to love where and even now, sorry to,
you're fine.
Even now, I that's what I miss most is where the drink used to, how it used to make me, take me in my mind, make me feel like I was doing better than
at least temporarily.
A fake thing.
Temporarily.
Very fake.
So go back to when you were working with the psychologist then and his recommendation to moderate your drinking. Did you do that at the time or?
What happened was, right, I got a bit of a foot in the door with the gym. And because I'm a kind of a big guy, good shoulders, I started to put on a bit of muscle and I started to feel better about myself. And I physically got a kind of a bigger guy look.
You looked stronger. Yeah. Okay.
I put on my chest. You'd see my chest. And I was able to do maybe, I used to aim for 4 or 5 nights a week, not drinking. And I kind of managed. And I had it at the stage where I would not drink during the week or try to.
Yeah. Until
Friday. And I'd be training every night.
Okay.
And eating okay. Not doing the supermax. And then Friday evening at 6 o'clock when we'd finish work, there was just flames where my feet were to the pub. I mean, flame, Roadrunner vibes.
Right, yeah.
To the pub, to the bar stool. Couldn't wait. So I was always, no matter how disciplined I got myself in the training, it was always just thinking of the next piss up.
And during because I think this is really valuable, during the week, like, did you find yourself, like, was it very kind of like controlled? Like, were you literally kind of just like trying to make it to Friday?
No.
Was it like that or?
I remember like, the guys in work seeing the difference in me.
Yeah.
Like going, Jesus, fair fucking dues to you.
Yeah.
You're doing better.
Yeah.
But at the same time, at the weekends, the Friday, Saturday, I used to put away an awful lot on those 2 nights.
Yeah.
And I'd be kind of screwed.
Yeah.
I'd be hungover and all this. And then I'd start again on Monday. And then as it got to Thursday again, I'd start to feel better again.
Okay.
Friday. But then what happened was, I started to slip. So the next thing, something might happen. You might have to go to something. There'd be a wine reception or, opening of
during
a thing.
The week.
We might have been working for, let's say, a company that's
doing a job or something. Yeah.
And the next thing we'd be at it. And there was no way I could go to anything where there was drink, where I didn't drink. Just no way. Even if I had the van with me, the van was staying there, whatever.
Yeah.
So any excuse. And that used to happen towards the end, even as well before I quit. It was like someone would say, "Oh, are you around on Tuesday? We're having this thing. Do you want to come in and get a few shots with your camera or whatever? We'll pay you." And before they'd finish, I'd be thinking, "There's going to be a drink to drink at this thing. Okay. Where will I leave the car?
So that was the
What
incentive.
time will I do? Yeah. Will I leave the camera behind me in a bag and up in their storeroom? Will I do this? Will I do that?" And yeah. So it was premeditated, constantly obsessed with the drink.
Okay.
And I started to meet more women as well. I remember when I was in better shape. Were you going to ask me that?
That's my next question, actually. Yeah. How did it impact your relationships?
I started to look a lot better. I was looking better. And I started to feel better about myself. So then when I wouldn't drink during the week and then I'd go out on a Friday or something, I'd be feeling more in control and I was looking better, physically better. The women, because I'm 6'2", and the women would be, "Oh, you playing rugby?" And sure, yeah, I'm injured these days. I train the lads now on a Saturday and I wouldn't have a clue about rugby, but I pretended. But a few of my friends they still are heavy drinkers.
Yeah.
And we used to get together then and, it wasn't not all of my drinking was that what I mentioned a while ago.
Sure, yeah.
But a lot of it was.
Well, you wouldn't... Like, people don't keep drinking, unless there are high points. Like,
exactly.
That's what people are chasing all
is
the time.
High points. Yeah. And like the crack I had.
Yeah.
But there was messy stuff too. There was things going wrong. And you can talk about that, how the alcohol puts you in so much danger.
So the first thing, before we come to that, I want to ask you about negative impact on your relationships.
Oh yeah, I really struggled with women over the years. I mean, I never really had any really long-term girlfriends up until like as I got older.
Yeah.
Like I met one girl, I think you might have met her years ago, lovely country girl, quite a bit younger than me, 11 years younger than me. She was only 22 and I was about 33 or 34 at the time. And I was doing a bit better and she really liked me. I was doing a bit better and I was drinking very heavily, but I wasn't drinking, it wasn't as bad. I had a bit of self-esteem. My self-esteem was better. I was training and stuff.
Yeah.
But she was a lovely girl. But I remember like at the time I was with her, like I never brought her anywhere or never did anything with her where there wasn't a drink. Like even if we were going for a walk in the woods.
You'd go for a drink afterwards.
Yeah, like bring her out to Barna Woods. I'd be bringing her into the Oslo on the way back home or something. Do you know what I mean? Or we're going to town then. I was always just, Jesus, what time is it? You know, always one eye on the, like, and I've had to learn how to meet women and chat to women.
Yeah.
In broad daylight now, in a cafe. Ask a woman out at 8 o'clock, at 7:30 in the morning, getting a coffee. Can you, like the thought of doing that years ago, geez, I must get your number, we must catch up again. That is tough going for a lot of fellas. Yeah. But I have to do that now. Or I did do it, you know, but so with the women, I found it, I used to be, I was mean to them. I wasn't nice with drink and stuff. I was selfish and didn't, you know, you're thinking of yourself first. And there was girls I would have met, there was one or two nice girls and I still see them around town and they might have been into me and they might have been up for it, but I just didn't follow through. And they'd want to, I remember one girl in particular and she was into horse riding and up in the morning and, you know, Sunday morning, oh, do you want to come out to the horses today? I'll show you. And all I could think of was just getting back to my little den, to my computer, to my set of decks, my own little day, and to get a bottle of wine cracked open and just be on my own. You know what I mean? Yeah. Now I mightn't, looking back, I mightn't have been as into her as I thought, but still, sure. Yeah. I was terribly. And now some people listening to that will go, look, just do what you feel like doing. But there was a lot of, I let go of opportunities and I messed up as well. Stuff I'd say, I'd be too blunt, too frank.
So fast forward then, when did you kind of decide, okay, this is kind of getting out of hand?
Here's one for you. I used to feel sorry for sober people in life. People that I knew didn't drink or people that had to stop, people that chose never to drink. I used to always look at them and go, the poor bastard, how does he get through the week? What must his life be like? It must be miserable. Yeah. And I'd look at them and it was like that for years. And there's a few people, you know, that I know that don't drink and stuff. And I just go, Jesus, how do they manage? And what happened was then I started, my late 30s, things got worse. You wouldn't think from what I was saying it would get worse, but the drinking just became more routine. Yeah, yeah. And I'll give you an example. I was sitting down on my computer doing a job I hated doing. I was editing this video or something, 2016, and the golf had been on that weekend. The American golf. Yeah. And what happened was the play, I forget what, was it the US Open or one of these? So the play had been stopped on the Sunday. And I was working, this was Monday at 12 o'clock. And I'm listening to Today FM, the sports news comes on. Oh, you know, play was cancelled yesterday due to thunder and lightning. So it resumes today on the Monday. Rory McIlroy will be teeing off at 2 o'clock or whatever. Yeah. Sorry, now it might have been America. I'm trying to think of the time zone. But I just, little flash. Oh, you could just stop what you're doing now and you could cycle down to the Huntsman, lock your bike and watch the golf all day because you didn't see the golf all weekend and you should have watched the golf, the major that was on. So I remember just dropping what I'm doing Monday at 1:30 in the shower, nothing to eat, and down on a bar stool, pints of Guinness, golf on a Monday, you know, and I like that was, you know, when you should be working and you just go drinking. Like, so there was a lot of that stuff as well. I know I'm going back
So you were on your own at this stage?
So that was towards the end. Yeah. And that was, so I was just telling you there about the people that I used to feel sorry for. And, you know, but what was happening was then I used to I started feeling jealous of sober people, envious. That prick now, he's not after spending $1,000 in the last month on drink, €1,000 on drink. Look at him. The fat isn't hanging off him. He hasn't got big fat face on him like I have, bloated, you know, from all the booze. You know, sober people started to become very attractive to me. And I started, there was he wasn't my immediate friend. He was one of my best friend's best friend. But I still knew this guy and liked him. And we used to go, geez, I wonder how poor old Johnny is doing. Like, you know, poor old Johnny had to give up the drink. And all of a sudden, poor old Johnny became a fella I was very interested in. So I remember messaging him on Facebook and saying, would you mind if I do a phone call with you? Because he was 5 years sober at the time. And there's another few people.
So that was your first reach out?
Yeah, I remember getting him to ring me. That was about 6 months before I stopped. And I say to people, like the people that don't drink that often, but they go and they have the crack and they let rip. And even if they're sick the following day, so what? And then they'll leave it for another 5 or 6 weeks.
Yeah.
They're the lucky ones. Or even the people who love a few drinks 2 or 3 times a week and they're up in the morning. They're lucky. But the thing is, with me, it was just all or nothing. And I'm like that. And I'm like that with the sugary stuff as well. And you can talk about that as well, sugary foods. Sugar is the new alcohol.
Okay.
It's alcohol for children. So in the end, what I did was that guy in the pub, he said, you know, he said, just admit it and just go to a meeting and see what happens. That's the moment. When
you went to the meeting?
He said that to me. And I said, I had bought books, how to quit alcohol without AA, how to quit alcohol through diet, lifestyle changes. I wasn't an AA person. No way. But he brought me to a meeting and what was that like? Changed. I thought I was way too good for everyone in that room. Way too good. But a fella walked into that room who's worth about 20 million. Businessman. And I was going, what's he doing here? Do you know what I mean? I didn't get the way it works. I thought the alcoholic was the fella you see in the shop in front of you shaking with cuts on his face, or as he's like that, throwing a 20 to buy a bottle of spirits. Yeah. I thought they were, the people on the street. Yeah. But man, they're as thick as blades of grass. There's as many of them as blades of grass, and I can talk about that, the frequency of alcoholism, the percentage of the population that are caught. It's frightening. And that's why I like to be open about it. But anyway, yeah, that's how it started. I started to reach out with people, and there's about 4 or 5 people I reached out to. Yeah. Okay.
So I'm interested to know, like, what was your feeling? You described kind of the kind of sense of like, I'm better than these people.
Oh, yeah.
There was obviously something that brought you back. There was something that you resonated with.
In the meetings.
Yeah.
They put the pressure on me in there.
Okay.
They said, look, you might, and I didn't feel like going again. And what happened was I went a few times and then I kind of stopped going. And then I let weeks go by. And then I said, Jesus, will I try? I was trying to go back to my ways, as in not go back to drink, but just trying to do it my own way. I said, look, I'm on my own here for most of the week, working on my own. Doing my working, like when you work for yourself, you can spend a lot of time. Now I meet a lot of people through work and it's great. And I'm all around Ireland, but, and I wouldn't change it but there is times where you spend a week, so I said, look, going into a room with 25 people and talking honestly about yourself, even if it wasn't down to addiction, it's a great thing to do. Yeah. It's brilliant, powerful. And the chats and the people I've met. So I do like it, yeah.
So what was it, or what is the piece that kind of brings you back to AA? Just for anybody who's listening in who maybe has like similar ideas of, I'm not one of those people that attends AA meetings. Like, what is the strength of an AA meeting?
You see, people think they don't want to go into AA. There's a few things that might put them off. The self-consciousness, I'm like what I was saying, you might feel like it's below you. It's not really. But you might also feel like you can do it yourself and all that. And even if you could, as I said, just going in is the chat is good. Like I went in to a meeting there about a week ago and I spoke about the sugar thing, and I didn't talk about alcohol at all. And the whole room opened up about their problem with sugar as well, and how sugar is deadly. And so like I got a lot of information about that. Like, and you'll hear people, amazing stories. You have all sorts. You have fellas in their 80s, and you have, you know, young women age 21, 22. Some people get it early. They quit when they're in their late teens. Other people in their 60s.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But so there's a variety there. But I only go to one, and I don't go that often. I should go more. See, here I go again. I need to go more. But look, I've 8 years of sobriety.
Well done.
Changed my life, reinvented myself. I'm a different person. The same in many ways.
Ryan is what age now?
He's 4 almost. 4. Yeah.
Don't be a little fan.
Oh, stop. Jesus. That was a gift.
So you're
magic in that.
Yeah, because obviously you're more present for him in every respect.
Oh, I would die if I had to mind Ryan and be hungover at the same time. And I know a lot of parents do that. It's great to be sober and great to be present. And you need energy for a child and energy just to answer their silly little questions that come every 2 seconds. They're not silly, but they take energy to keep answering the questions of a 4-year-old.
Yeah, absolutely. So just, I suppose there's lots of different theories in terms of like, you know, the different causes of what leads people to become, as you mentioned earlier, why does one person become an alcoholic and another person can go out and have a couple of drinks and just leave it at that? What do you think personally were your reasons, you know, for drinking? Was it to kind of block stuff out? Was it that you were chasing that high all the time? Do you feel like it was kind of a myriad of different things that were happening in your life? You know, you mentioned about not being very, you know, not having great work satisfaction, but like, was there, because I suppose a lot of the clients that I would work with talk about, you know, traumatic histories, for example, that they don't want to address, and that the easier thing, I suppose, or what helps them to cope better rather than having to address the really difficult stuff that may have happened. That they, you know, they drink or they take drugs or they, whatever the case is, you know, there's many different drugs of choice, as you know. But in your case, and obviously you don't need to go into any detail, but in your case, what do you think generally were the reasons that you drank to excess?
It's an interesting one, and I think there's new research going into it that, you know, where some people are chemically, biologically more disposed to it than others. Like if you look at my immediate family, my parents hardly drank at all. My mother,
which is interesting.
Mum used to go to a function and she'd ask for a glass of sherry if she was asked. And it'd sit a tiny glass, you know, a smaller glass of sherry. She wouldn't touch it. She wouldn't even sip it. She did not drink. Dad was never that keen on. I never saw my father with drink on him. Only when he retired one time. Well, after he'd retired from 40 years, did I see him one little bit shaky from drink. He only ever had 2 pints.
Okay.
And that was back in the day, 2 or maybe 3 or whatever. But that was back in the day before the drink driving thing, whatever. But
so that kind of in some way rules out the biological genetic type.
But then I've siblings, like out of the 5 of us, 2 of them aren't at all predisposed to, and then the other 2 and me would be a little bit more keen.
Okay.
Without giving away who is who.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So, like you mentioned there, like, oh, you're not happy in your job. Like, I mean, or you're not happy with, does that make you drink or you want to go places? Why does the person then, there's an awful lot of people in that are very bored and not, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why isn't everyone going on the piss then to just get away from it all? I am beginning to think that the addictive personality thing is a bit of a thing. In AA, they mention it's a sickness, it's an illness and stuff.
And do you subscribe to that theory?
I struggle with it, that theory, and I did. But then again, the God thing, you know, give yourself up to God. I struggled with that as well. And now I don't. Another
thing I'm really interested in is your experience of, like, a lot of people will describe how difficult it is, particularly, you know, because the Irish, like we do, you know, everything, drink is involved in almost everything, every celebratory moment, every mourning moment, every whatever. What has been your experience, or do you find it difficult to socialise and to go to things, you know, in the evenings or whatever the case is? Do you tend to avoid? Did you have to make, sorry, 2-part question. Did you have to make changes in terms of your social circle when you decided to quit drink?
I didn't have a problem with the socializing.
Okay.
Because I just didn't socialize anymore.
Okay.
I just stopped going near pubs. I can go out now.
And did you have to do that?
Yeah, I chose to do it.
Yeah.
If you don't go to the barbers, you won't walk out with a haircut. That's what some of the recovering alcoholics will say. Do you know what I mean? I'm up early now in the morning and going in for coffee and in Oranmore or whatever. There's people around. There's people see me. I go into town. I'm in Salthill a lot with Ryan. So I'm still I'm not lying in the bed hungover. People are seeing me maybe in the, you know, so that's the way I see it. But you do sacrifice your social life, and it's easier if you do.
When I'm working with people, if they're struggling with an addiction of any description, you know, is similar to what you've just described, that if you have particular systems of behavior patterns that you have been accustomed to for however length of time, you have to put positive behaviors in the mix instead of those negative aspects that you were more drawn to in the past.
Yeah.
So what have been some of the things? I mean, I know obviously you're usually into wildlife photography or whatever. What are some of the things that have really helped you in terms of like that kind of making a diversion in terms of your attention, but towards positive things?
The fact that you've so much, you have more time now. You're not spending time in the pub. You're not spending time recovering in the morning. Like I got into wildlife photography. I was into wildlife years ago as a child. It was my first hobby, was the binoculars, bird watching down Loch Athalia. And then I was flying my drone shortly after I got sober. I bought a drone and I was down in the Burren on a freezing cold morning. And this bird came out and it was hunting along the edge of the along the edge of where the burn went down to the rocks, went the black head.
Yeah.
And I was flying my drone and I just bought this new lens and I was able to photograph this bird. It was called a merlin. It's a type of falcon. And I remember I shot a whole video that day and I went home then and I looked at the images and I saw, and it lit something in me. Just the fact that I was able to capture this bird hunting off the corner, and I've gradually got more and more into wildlife stuff now. And I'm just off the phone. There's a company that I've worked for over 3 years now. They've paid me every month for about 2 or 3 days of wildlife work.
Wow.
They own so much land
that
they're big into pushing their biodiversity thing. So I've done amazing, like to get paid
for what you love.
To get paid to go down, sit in the car, or well, not sit in the car, but go down in your car with your binoculars, go, right, there's a peregrine falcon over there. I have to try and find him now. And you have the flask of tea with you and you have the stew for later on. You go into their canteen and heat it up. And I won't go home. I can charge them for whatever, but I'd start at 7 a.m. I won't go home until 10 a.m. until it's dark because I'm just so in the moment. So it's great it's a privilege to be able to do that. But like I went up to the lake the last day in Loch Corrib and we've had some beautiful weather lately. And I have a thing called a ghillie blanket, which I put over me. It's like it looks like a big furry, leafy, messy blanket. But what it does is it breaks your profile. So if you lie down like that, you throw this over you. If you put it in the right position, if you throw it in the middle of that table, it's not going to work. Or even on grass, you're going to see it. But if you go up against a bush or something, you're like that, you can really hide out. But I'm lying there, and it's a cracking evening. The sun is going down, beautiful Loch Corrib, and you can just hear all the birds. And there's areas of Loch Corrib that are mad for wildlife. They're incredible. The biodiversity there. They should remove farming from it completely. They really should. And if this was England, the RSPB would have bought the whole area and it would be a special protected area. Sorry, I'm going on a bit long now, but
no, you're fine.
Whooper swans, 2 whooper swan fly in. Now, you might think swans are just swans. You can go down the Claddagh. These are wild swans that just don't go near anyone. They've flown here from Iceland and they're just arriving from Iceland, and they land in the water feet away from me. And I'm listening to the sounds they're making, the way they're touching each other's heads, male and female, whatever. just incredible. And you're being in the moment, you capture that, you photograph it, and you hope they don't see you. You just don't want to disturb them. And the next thing I'm looking over here, and a marsh harrier. You've probably heard of a hen harrier. Marsh harrier comes flying along, doesn't even see me, flying along. And then there's a bird called a great egret. There's all these different birds around me. And another day I had a family of otters just come up.
I saw you. I remember.
You saw that video?
Yeah. Amazing.
That, like, just to be in there in nature and to be present. You're talking about presence. People say to me, do you meditate?
That's your meditation.
Do I have to?
Yeah.
Like, do I have to meditate on top of doing that?
Yeah.
What, come in from being 4 hours sitting still up the lake?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to do a bit of meditation now.
Yeah. But that's the essence of presence. Because
that changed my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, that has changed my life, and I'm doing YouTube videos now, and I have a new YouTube video on some of that stuff, on a new lens I bought. This is where the gadgets. You see, I love my camera gear, gadgets and stuff. I'll be chatting to Gary about this stuff here, and that's where I can tie in my love for the technical side.
And
do
you've
YouTube
loads of subscribers as well.
I do, yeah. So I have a new video now. It's going to be about 40 minutes long, but the viewers are going to love that.
Yeah,
they're going to love. They're going to sit down with a cup of tea, whatever, like, and watch it and.
So what else has helped you? The wildlife, obviously.
And
is,
the gym.
I mean, the gym.
The gym.
Yeah.
And you know what? Even people like, even Jen, you know, the mother of my child, Jen, and we're very good friends. And she you know, she got me into jogging. I never jogged all my life. And I used to, I'm not doing much lately because I have a little bit of a vein thing on my leg I need to watch, but I want to get back into it. But I just running. I never ran. And now I could run 10K, no problem now. I never did that.
Yeah.
Swimming.
Yeah.
I never started. She kind of got me into doing a bit of swim. I go into the sea now and I can swim. I taught myself how to do breaststroke. Now I could always do it at swim.
Yeah.
But now I can do a kind of a bit of a glide. I can get going in the water. When I come out of the water, I look like, oh, there's your man's able to swim, like.
Yeah.
And so that kind of stuff, being in the wilds and being outside is lovely.
Yeah. And I think what's coming through very strongly in what you're describing is kind of that sense of pride.
Yeah.
In what you've accomplished. Because I remember like having a chat to you ages ago and you were like that, you were frustrated, I think, by the fact that you weren't achieving in your work what you wanted to achieve.
Yeah.
You weren't accomplishing your own goals that you had set for your life. And I think that was a real point of frustration for you. And
I still am. Like, and my problem is, and you've probably gathered from this chat, I've so many interests and hobbies. Music was my thing back in the day. Before any of this stuff came out, the cameras, before that revolution, what they call the DSLR revolution, these small cameras that can do great quality video. I was only into music. I was buying records and I wanted to make electronic music and stuff. And a couple of months ago, I bought a new keyboard. You know, I got it at a good price. And I started dabbling again, but I've so little time now. Yeah. And I'm really angry. Yeah. I'm really angry because that time I would have been telling you that I would have had all the time in the world and I wasn't using it. So now I'm going, right, I have an hour now to kill or to do this. I'll try and get that. I'll try and mess about with this or try and, you know, so there isn't enough hours in the day at the moment.
But at least you have that clear head. Yeah. You know, you have that sort of presence to know, okay, I have an hour to spare. I'm not going to just whittle it away.
Oh, the hours I wasted.
Or whatever.
It's such a waste of time. Yeah. It's frightening. And that's the first thing I'll say to anyone. And that's, in a way, it's one of the difficult things. It's just, you've so much time. If you're not drinking, you've so much time. And as to say the presence, where you're present to do things, you'll be, especially if you're avoiding going out and stuff. Yeah, you'll struggle to get through the day, but it gets easier and it gets more enjoyable.
How long, roughly, did it take before you felt that things started to get easier, that it felt like?
Straight away.
Really?
It gets easier straight away. And that can be a big problem in itself, because what happens is, if you get a hold on something and you're feeling good 3 weeks in, you say to yourself, why don't I just do this? Why don't I just drink for a week and then do 3 weeks off it? That'll be fine. It keeps tricking you. It's cunning, baffling, and what's the other one? I should know. You might know. And powerful. Yeah. It's unbelievable how it works. And even how the sugar works. Sugar works in the same thing, the addiction thing. I was a week off sugar. And I gave Ryan, I found a little tube of Smarties in my car. and I gave a few to Ryan, and they were in the car. And one of them was in my hoodie pocket, and I just went like that, and that was it. I went to the cafe then after, and I got a brownie or something, and the Smarties, and then I was back on it. But that's how that can be the drink. You think you're doing good, you feel good, and that's why people stay going. It's too precious on them. They want to be able to drink and enjoy it, and then be in control, and then be healthy and have a good life and not waste money, and then be able to drink. But that's the problem is people can't get the balance right, and I couldn't.
Yeah, and do you feel like, because I know you mentioned earlier about, I suppose, AA, kind of the ethos is very much around that it's an illness. But I know that some people that I work with would say, well, actually, no, my number one thing in terms of my addiction was drugs, for example. And once I got a handle of the drugs, you know, I'm actually able to kind of drink a few cans and leave it at that. Do you agree would you agree with that, or do you think that will eventually catch up with?
I've seen a lot of people, and like what I said a minute ago, it's so precious and it's such an enjoyable thing, drinking. It really is. It's great fun that people they'll do anything they can to just get it under control. And there's a small few percentage of people that can say, oh, I drink a lot less now, and I found out what was making me drink, and now I've it under control. I have a few on a Friday night and I leave it at that. Well, more power to you. I'm like Jordan Peterson. Well, more power to you, mucko. Well, knock yourself out.
Yeah.
See how that goes for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's the, like, but sometimes it's easier just to treat it like, okay, fuck it, they're right, it's an illness and I have this condition. But like 25% of people that drink have a problem with it, I think.
Everyone is on their own journey. And it has to kind of reach a point where it becomes problematic for the individual themselves. And I suppose in psychology terms, how we would kind of define addiction would be, and this is kind of going outside of the DSM now, just kind of in very kind of layman's terms, but when it starts to interfere with everyday life, and when it starts to interfere with your relationships. So they would be the two defining features in terms of like when somebody presents and they're describing their lives, and it's very obvious that it's impacting their work life, it's impacting their friendships, it's impacting their romantic life, it's impacting everything, every area. And that it is that, you know, temporary reprieve followed by extreme shame. Oh, yeah. Extreme, you know, every negative emotion that you can possibly.
The dopamine drop, the awful feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know all about that. Yeah.
So what would be your advice to anybody who's listening in, Hugh, or watching, you know, in terms of if they feel like, okay, I kind of think I might have an issue with this, but I'm not 100% sure. Well, two parts to the question, I suppose. What would you think from your perspective, having kind of come out the other side and still on your recovery journey? What's the kind of defining feature to look out for, specifically in relation to alcohol? And maybe what would you suggest somebody does as kind of a first step in terms of moving themselves in the direction of a better life?
Okay, well, the first thing I'd say is, right, they say admitting is the first step, right? It's going to be easier for you just to give into it and to not kick the can down the road. Trust me, it's easier just to have a problem than to be wondering if you have a problem for ages. And I'd say, look, if you just kind of know it in your gut, in your soul, you know it yourself. And I used to be doing tests and am I an alcoholic on the internet? Answering questions. Has it made you late for work? Have you had an argument with someone? Have you had an accident? And
so you'd actually be putting in that question into...
I must have done it 100 times. Okay. Yeah. Like there's a sort of a stigma attached to alcoholics and people like alcoholics are kind of laughed at in ways, but a successfully recovered alcoholic or recovering alcoholics, no such thing as recovered, we'll say, but they're by no means somebody to laugh at or to make fun of, right? No, because there's somebody to have a conscience is a great thing, because what you spoke about there, there's an awful lot of people out there that will just sail on as they are and just stay drinking and not beat themselves. And I know a lot of people, you were saying like, oh, People are, when do they know, and they might have an issue. And I know loads of fellas that go for pints at lunchtime, and they go for pints then in the evening on the way home for work, and then they might have a bottle of wine or two, and they're drinking every day, but they're running really good businesses and all that, and they're fully functioning. They're not falling out with anyone, but they're drinking themselves. Their insides are melting away. It's a serious amount of drink. You should stop. So it's not all, like, there's a lot of functionality in people, the functioning alcoholics. It's all to do with your, like, dopamine levels, to mention it again, and what makes you, you don't need much to make you feel good. You don't need you don't need to be on a yacht off the coast of Sardinia or somewhere, diving into blue, green water with a big party coming on soon. You don't need to have that. I mean, can I just say one thing? Like, if you're a heavy drinker, right? Like, say if you were able to buy a pill, and the pill would, you take this pill and it makes you lose weight, and it makes you sleep better, and it makes you look better, and it improves your concentration. And if the same pill was to, save your money about €800 a month or whatever, and if the same pill made you, 10 times less likely to be in an accident, 20 times less likely to be in a fight, if the same pill was to reinforce your relationships with people and make you a nicer person and more accountable and more responsible. And then if you found out the pill was free, and that is what sobriety is like. Honestly, it's like a drug in itself. So it's a gift. And I often talk like about sobriety, like sobriety is, it's like a gift nearly from God. Like you're kind of chosen because so many people don't get it and they don't want it bad enough, and they just struggle on drinking into oblivion. So to have that conscience, to really want it, that's the gift. And I wanted it, and it took me a while. There was the stages where those islands where I went off it for 3, 4, 5 months, a few times, and I was going, Jesus Christ, why am I and I go back then to the way I was, even worse. But it instilled, I said, oh God, you remember that time you went off, how you felt? And I love talking to people, and people, like, and that's why I'm open. Like, there's certain people don't believe in being open. We're Irish. We were kind of afraid. We're not, the Americans are better at it than us. But I like being open, and I'm proud to say that I'm an alcoholic or I'm a drink. I've no problem, because it's who I am now, and I need to hold on to it. And the fellas told me that in the rooms and the meetings earlier on. And you see, you get this knowledge. That's why it's good to go. Hold on to it. Just do your damnedest to hold on to it, because it doesn't come easy, and you're very lucky to have it.
So 2 things I want to come back to before we finish up. You mentioned earlier about discipline and the importance of discipline, which I'm a huge proponent of, because I think it's a vital thing that we all need. And I think it's when people lack discipline that their lives become very unwieldy. How big of an impact has discipline played in your life since becoming sober?
Well, I can honestly tell you that it's an area that I struggle in, discipline, still, right? You when you quit booze and you get control of your life again, it doesn't change you fully. Like, it just eliminates one part of the problem. Yeah. So, like, I know that even in my workspace, in my house, and I like, at the moment, it's a bit of it needs work, or I'll have stuff thrown around. I know how a bit of discipline to structure things. I know that if I'm, to clean up and be organized, I know that if I just discipline myself to be at my desk at 8:30 and not to look at social media, I know that if I, don't go out for a coffee at 11, if I just stay at home and just stay working, I'm going to feel 10 times better than if I only get barely 2 hours work done in the morning, which often happens. These desk jobs we have, we're just surrounded by distraction. So discipline makes you feel amazing. And I know that. Yeah. And productivity. I'm like a German Shepherd dog. I need to be given serious amount of tasks and activity and movement. And if I'm left stagnant and unattended by myself, I turn vicious and I take the face off someone. So I need discipline. And Ryan has given me a lot of discipline, my son. I'm disciplined. I have to be there for him. I collect him twice a week. He's in preschool now. We were very lucky to get him in. He was going to school. It was hard to get in, and it was last minute.
Yeah.
I was very grateful. And I'm brilliant at thanking God, the universe, whatever it is.
Yeah, which leads me nicely into my next question, which was, again, you mentioned around the spiritual aspect that you found difficult in the early stages of AA when they were kind of encouraging a connection. Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about that journey for you?
Well, I was kind of like a lot of Irish people, you know, I was kind of put off God a bit. And my parents were very religious, you know, like it was great for them in many ways. My mother, you know, it really helped her when Dad died and stuff. And but I kind of turned my back on God a lot. And I don't go to mass now, I'll be honest. And I wouldn't be brilliant for keeping up that stuff. But there's something I want, like when I spoke about wanting what the sober fella had. I kind of want God in my life because God
like
is kind of distant. Yeah, you know, and I remember when I was younger, a child, and you know, we were taught to pray for stuff, and it's brilliant to pray for something, to ask.
Well, do you know what it is? It's actually, you know, a lot of people talk about manifestation. You know,
it was at Easter Sunday. You know, I think it was about 2 years ago, and I decided. Jeez, I was coming through and Mass was starting, 12 o'clock Mass. And I've never gone to Mass an hour and more. I was in there for church a few times, communions, all that. Yeah. Decided to go in. And I stood at the back of the church and the community there and the priest and the crack and the church was packed. It was just busting at the seams. There was people I was trying to count, I think there was about 200 people nearly standing. I was saying there was 20 there, there's 30 there. You know, I said, how many people are standing? Look at everyone sitting. It's amazing. And I felt great coming out of it.
Okay.
And I just tried to be present there.
Yeah. And I think that's the key thing. Yeah. It's about, like, it's not that I always say that, you know, you have to find what works for you. And it's not that, you know, I'd be very respectful of, like, some people, you know, don't have any spiritual practice, you know, or don't have any connection.
Yeah.
And I think as long as you're being as good a human,
I know.
You know, if you're at least attempting to be as good a human as, you know, and thinking of others, you know, and being respectful towards yourself first and foremost, because I always say if you don't have respect for yourself, you're not going to be respectful of others.
Oh,
you know, so it's really to find your own practice, isn't it? You know, to find.
Like it is, the respect for yourself and when you're sober and being able to look people in the eye and communicate and talk and let them talk. Listen to them. And I was terrible at that. I just wanted my own story and selfish and all that. So
how would you like to finish this piece? I suppose you've been very open. You've been very, you know, honest about your journey. Is there anything that you feel, you know, that you might like to kind of suggest to anybody who's listening in, or any kind of final thought that you'd like to add to the conversation?
I mean, you know, the visualization, just visualize, you know, the life you want. And is drink going to get you there? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think if a lot of people listening, I mean, if there's 1,000 people listening, there's a chance that 250 are struggling with drink. Like, let's be honest, that's the way it is. So just go for it, because there's a life out there to be had. And it doesn't, you know, you have this visions of you traveling the world and meeting amazing people. And that's not what it's about. It's just about what we spoke about earlier. It's about the small things and just being really happy in the moment.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful. I wouldn't swap my life with anyone. I used to look at people and be jealous, like, of what they had, their assets and stuff, you know. I've had crazy moments of positivity just by that kind of visualization and being grateful.
Yeah. And
just saying, fuck it, or just give it up to God, or say, God, you handle this one for me. I can't.
Yeah.
Or, you know, so yeah, look, I'm kind of going over and back a bit now, but.
And again, there's a huge amount of psychology research that has backed up, like, the use of visualization.
I love visualization.
You know, even like when I was attending psychology in UCD, and there was he's since died, there was a psychology professor, but he was really into, like, mental imagery. And, you know, he worked with, like, some of the top athletes in Ireland. Yeah. And he introduced us, not me specifically, but introduced, you know, the class to mental imagery. And I remember being fascinated at the time by, that if you can actually visualize something in your mind, that it increases the possibility of it happening in real time. That to me is just, it's still mind blowing, and that the more that you mentally rehearse, and exactly as you're saying, that if you can have a vision of where the direction that you want your life to go, it doesn't have to be too specific, but the general direction, and you also have a vision of how you see yourself in that, in that space.
Yeah.
That's going to move you in that direction as well.
Yeah.
So
it
I think
manifests
that's a really
through your thoughts.
Really good
It's
way
powerful.
to finish.
I've felt it, and I even do with the wildlife and stuff. I could be sitting down, there'd be nothing happening, and I go, you're going to see something. Something's going to land on that branch,
and then it happened.
And it happened the last night. A rare species that landed and I visualized it before it happened.
Yeah.
So I love doing it, and if it does happen, and like I'll finish like on this quick story. I was a couple of years ago, like I work for myself, and it can be very, very daunting at times as a photographer, videographer. And it was 2021, and I was, Jen was, we were living together. We had a 5-month-old baby, and I had no work coming in. It was COVID, and these payments and stuff were finished. It was daunting, and we were like, "What the hell am I going to do?" Jen says, "What the hell are you going to do?" And I just felt this feeling of a job coming in. So I said, something's gonna come my way. I had literally no work on. I was like, Jesus Christ, but I just felt it. I felt it. And a letter was in the letterbox. A letter had come in, and I hadn't opened it. I'm a devil for not opening my email. But I remember it was a job proposal printout, like normally it's an email, and so I opened it up, and we need please propose a price for this following series of videos for whatever.
Yeah. So
I remember saying, I never get these jobs. I just never get these big government. It was a state body type of thing. Never. They always pick someone else. I never get them for some reason. I price myself wrong, whatever. And Jen said, don't even bother. Like, don't bother wasting your time quoting it if you don't get them. I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do the best ever quote I've ever done in my life. I'm going to spend 2 days, because I have the time. I didn't have the work.
Yeah.
So I priced it up, and I went through every little detail, and I drew up a really proper proposal, and I priced the job fully, and it was for about 17,000 euros, which was way more than, like, Gary and stuff will tell you here what a big, it's big for, most jobs for videos for a company would be a couple of grand or whatever. It might even be a few hundred. So this was big job. But I remember pricing it up. And I remember then the phone, a couple of days later, whatever, I forgot about, sent it off anyway. And a couple of days later, the phone rang, and this guy, such and such, you priced a certain job, and he had an Australian accent. Yeah, how's it going? Yeah. To be honest with you, you weren't the cheapest, but you just sounded like you really knew what you were doing. Okay. And we're going to give you the job. So
love it. Love to hear it.
I knew something was going to come in.
Yeah.
I said to Jen, I said, something is going to happen. I'm going to trust me. And she was really worried. We were like,
Of course.
And I felt it. I just felt it inside here. And that letter was sitting there all along. But I did something to manifest it.
Exactly. I went piece.
Outside my skin to do that good. Yeah. So there's no point in visualizing it and say, the universe is going to open. You have to, it's your actions that will do it. So on that note, we'll leave it at there.
Fantastic. Hugh Sweeney, it's been a pleasure as always. Thanks so much for coming in and joining me today. Really.
It's a pleasure, Denise. Lovely to see you. And I'll bring you for a nice cup of coffee now. Do you want to have that? But what was I going to say to you? You can do a lot of beeping there now. Censor out a hell of a lot of that stuff.
Anyway, good to see you.
Brilliant.
Cheers, Hugh.
Thanks, Denise.
Thanks, Mel.